Hey guys and gals, what is up? Welcome or indeed welcome back to yet another video. In today's video, I have not one, but two Galaxy S8's that we're going to be fixing up today. And as you can see, one does not quite look like the other. These will be the first Samsung phones that I'll be fixing up and posting to my channel. So without further ado, let's check these phones out and see what's wrong. Taking a closer look at these two Galaxy S8's, I picked them up for $54 each on a volume parts lot. You can see I didn't know the condition that they would both arrive in, and you can see one is in pretty good condition while the other has a completely shattered back glass panel along with a completely destroyed front display. And as for the other one, it does have a perfect display. There are no cracks or dead pixels, but it does have a serious case of burn-in. We're going to be fixing up both phones today, replacing the displays on both along with the cracked back glass on the one, and bringing both phones up to a like-new condition. We're going to be taking a look at the cracked and more destroyed Galaxy S8 today because that'll be a far more interesting way to start out the video. You can see the digitizer is dead and it has a massive amount of dead pixels and along with a pinched white line down at the bottom there. If you can take a look at this picture I took like a week earlier, the dead pixels have in fact spread on the display. That is a common sign of OLED dead pixel damage. If your phone has these dead pixels, typically they will end up spreading like the one that I have here. Of course, that might have been because of my careless recklessness, but because this display is already dead, I didn't see any reason not to have some fun with it. I decided to start to pry up on the bottom screen here to see if I could damage it anymore, and I actually had a fair bit of luck. Eventually, once I finally got it pried up, I managed to increase the white pinch line down at the bottom. But now that we've had our fun, it is time to shut down this phone and get underway with the repair. I had to use my mouse because obviously the digitizer was busted. So it is time to get into this phone. And as you can see, it is different from an iPhone, where an iPhone you enter through the screen for all of your repairs. With a Galaxy phone and most Android phones, you enter through the back glass panel instead of the screen. So we're going to do that now. It is very hard to do, and of course it looks a lot easier on my end because I have already opened this phone up to test the two screens that I bought, so that's why it's quite easy for me to get inside. You'll see later in the video when I fix up the other Galaxy S8, that one is unopened. Now, we can go ahead and use the one screw for this entire repair, which is a Phillips head 00 screw. It's still a small screw, but very easy to do. And you can see here as I'm prying up on the back plastics how this phone uses a mid-frame design rather than the iPhone's screws and brackets to hold everything in place, which makes repair quite easy compared to an iPhone. We can take the speaker out finally and work to pry out the battery. Now, this battery did come out relatively easily. That's because, again, I've already pried it out, so I do have a video of actually removing a battery for the first time. So this is the first time adhesive. This is the strongest it will ever be from the factory, and you can see even with that in mind, it is incredibly easy to pull out compared to an iPhone with these stupid little pull tabs that are really hard to and really easy to break. We can go ahead and work to disconnect the various ribbon cables around the board now. And once we have that, we can go ahead and flick up on the charging port cable down at the bottom, remove a screw, and pull out our motherboard. You can see it's not quite the fancy dual stack design that are present in iPhones. However, it is still a pretty advanced motherboard that is in more of an L shape, typical of Samsung phones. Once we've done that, we can go ahead and pop out our little vibrator motor, followed by the front camera assembly. I wish I could tell you what that sensor is to the right, but I honestly don't know. We can remove the other top assembly that includes things like the notification LED and the iris scanner. We can work to finally move the charging port out and away from the phone, taking out the screws and finally prying up on it. We need to remove the headphone jack in order to fully remove the bottom charging port assembly. And once that's out, we are actually done disassembling this phone. So we can go ahead and take a look at our two new housings. And while we are taking a look, I do want to go over something that I feel is rather important. So looking on eBay at used Galaxy S8 prices, you can see that they go for about $140 to $160 for ones in good condition with no screen burn-in. However, that is a pretty fair price for the age of the phone. However, if we jump back to replacement screen prices for the device, you can see that some of them cost nearly as much as a fully working, undamaged Galaxy S8, which is really unfortunate to see. It's almost a way that forces people to upgrade their phones rather than fixing them, which ends up creating much more e-waste. So we can go ahead and work to finally assemble this phone after my little rant there. And once we do that, we can go ahead and grab the bottom flex assembly and charging port and work to align that up. It pops in. It sort of has like a little notch to line up. We can put in the antenna wires, followed by the little antenna there. We can grab our little buddy, the headphone jack, and put him in. He aligns in place like the charging port as well. And once we've got everything aligned at the bottom, we can go ahead and grab these screws and screw that in just like so. We can grab our little vibrator motor and put him in just as well, along with the top flex assembly, followed by the camera, which once we've cleaned the inside of the camera lens off because it was a little dusty, we can pop him into place. Now let's go ahead and grab our motherboard. Now this is a part that I actually do really hate about Galaxy S8 phones. You can see the motherboard needs to clip into place into the bottom charging port assembly, which is a big pain to line up. And once you do, it is an even bigger pain to try to line the motherboard up into the frame. It takes a little bit of finessing. However, once you do manage to get it in, you need to look out for all the various flex cables. I did have a little bit of trouble with this. However, I did finally manage to get it into place. Once that's in, we can go ahead and connect up all the various ribbon cables. Make sure the motherboard is, of course, lined up properly, or else you'll start to flex those little flex cables that are in ways that are unnatural. Go ahead and connect up those antenna wires, followed by the battery. And once that's in place, we can go ahead and grab the bottom plastics, which, like I said, this is using a mid-frame design, so it really helps keep everything in place and keeps the number of screws in the phone to a minimum and keeps everything nice and organized. And you can see here the way that Samsung manages to do this. So this is the NFC and wireless charging coil. You can see these little golden contact pads on the back of the back plastics here. And if we take a look on the motherboard side of things, you can see that there is these little golden pins. Now these pins make things very easy. There is very few cables inside this phone, and it instead relies on little golden contact pads. Now if this was an iPhone, you'd have all these sort of complicated ribbon cables going everywhere that are very easy to break, but Samsung makes it really easy for you to repair your phone. Now we're going to screw in just a couple of screws so we can go ahead and do our first test boot. I consider that bad luck to screw in every screw. That's why sometimes on my phones I don't screw in all the brackets. And we can go ahead and boot it up and see that it is working just fine, which is a pretty big relief. Even though I've tested this screen, sometimes things can go wrong or connections aren't fully connected up right. Once that's good, I can go ahead and screw in the rest of the screws, and we can go ahead and take a look at our back panel next and get that all ready to go. You can see that I have been inside this panel before, and I scratched off the back panel because I have an idea to do a clear Galaxy S8 video for the other Galaxy S8 that we haven't touched yet. That might be coming later. We need to go ahead and remove the fingerprint scanner from the back panel. Now again, this is something that is not paired to the phone. Unlike with iPhones, you have to be super careful with them, but on Samsung phones, the fingerprint scanner is not paired, which makes repair super easy. So if you break it or damage it, you don't have to worry about losing home button or fingerprint scanner functionality. I'm going to grab some crazy glue since I didn't have the proper adhesive and rub it around where the fingerprint scanner will go. And once that's done, I can go ahead and take the adhesive off of the new piece of glass. Since again, this was an OEM replacement, somebody left the adhesive on. We can go ahead and grab our new adhesive and put that back on and line it up into place. This was kind of a pain because it was not sticking entirely right. It was not a perfectly cut piece of adhesive. And we can go ahead and line up the fingerprint scanner. This is another process that is a big rather pain. You can see we need to line up those two contacts there, which is very hard to do because that cable on the fingerprint scanner is not long enough. So you need to basically have the piece of glass closed. And once you've done that, once you've connected up your fingerprint scanner, you can indeed press everything down into place and seal up the phone. Put the SIM card tray back in, and boot it up and make sure everything is working. We're going to go ahead and remove that plastic peel, which is such a nice sound. I wanted to let you guys hear that right there. So once everything is fixed up, that concludes our first Galaxy S8 restoration. But wait, there's more, you're saying. I know, we have not forgotten about the other Galaxy S8 that was in rather remarkably good condition. Unfortunately, this screen does have screen burn-in, so we will be replacing that. You can see it's kind of an odd pattern, something that you usually don't see. Usually it's in like a keyboard shape, but that's not the way that our screen burn-in was. You can see the screen is in remarkably good shape, and I will be selling this screen and frame on my eBay page to make up a little bit of the cost for the new screen. As you can see, despite that, people do actually buy screens without screen burn-in. So we're going to be speedrunning this repair today, but I do want to focus on the opening process a little bit before we speedrun the repair. You can see this phone has never been opened before, so it is going to be significantly harder to open. We can grab Mr. Sucky, which I thought was banished in another video, but we're actually bringing him back because he is going to be a very useful tool in cracking open and finally getting into this phone without breaking the display. You can see we've made an entrance point, and I'm going to grab some cardstock, which those college letters that I got last fall make great use for, since I literally have no use for them. They just make a bunch of waste, but they do have excellent cardstock. So in order to get into this phone the proper way, we're going to go ahead and use the heat gun and use a slow but sure steady technique, slicing along the edge of the glass to get in and adding our little cardstock pieces to help keep the glass from sticking back down. So in terms of tips for opening a Samsung phone, the best tips that I can give you is to go slow and steady, and of course use some cardstock inserted around the glass panel to stop it from sticking back down. And the reason you want to go slow and steady is, of course, because if you go too fast or you don't heat it up enough, the glass will end up cracking. That's not a problem if your glass is already cracked. However, if it is, you probably want to save that like mine. And once you've gotten a cardstock all the way around the phone, you can go ahead and lift up on that glass panel. We're going to go ahead and speed the rest of this repair now. So we go ahead and remove the wireless charging coil. And of course, I'm speed running this because you have already seen this in the other Galaxy S8. I was debating putting these two phones together in the same video since they are pretty vastly different, but I figured this repair is pretty mundane. It's not as exciting. It just has some screen burn-in, so that's why I'm not focusing on it as much. So taking apart these two Galaxy phones has really opened my eyes. Of course, this is not my first Samsung phone that I have repaired, but I don't do them as much because they are unfortunately not as profitable as iPhones, but they are just so fun to work on because they are so easy. Taking a look at our old display, I will be selling that on eBay. There is still a market for these old displays, believe it or not, even though it does have burn-in. The profit that I'll make from that screen will help offset some of the cost of the two new screens that I bought. And we can go ahead and take a look at the mess that I have made disassembling this phone. It's kind of interesting to see how all the parts are laid out, and I keep the nice screws pretty organized to help assembly go a little bit smoother. Much less components than it goes to an iPhone, which is pretty remarkable to see, considering the fact that the Galaxy S8 only has about 30 screws that go into it, which is not a lot. So we can go ahead and work to assemble the phone, and while we're watching that, I want to talk about the replacement screens that I did get. So the two screens that I bought were $130 a piece, which was actually, seems like a lot of money, but compared to the other ones that we looked at earlier in the video, actually wasn't a lot of money at all. Which was a pretty big relief, even though despite the fact that they are in such great condition and they have no burn-in, and some other screens that I was looking at were about $160 to $170 each for ones that were in similar condition. So we can go ahead and install the plastic mid-frame pieces and grab our wireless charging coil and pop that into place. That also does the NFC coil, which is a pretty neat Samsung technology that iPhones do not have. Makes paying on those little little Android Pay a little bit easier. And once we have that, we can go ahead and boot up and test the phone. And I was getting a strange notification for the charging port saying that it had water in it, which was kind of odd. So I just let it go and decided to screw in the rest of the screws, figuring maybe it was a little bit of a sensor that was loose or something. Now I am going to be doing something a little bit jank. I'm going to be taping down the back glass panel because we are going to be getting into this phone in a later video that's going to be coming soon. We're going to be turning this back panel into a clear Galaxy S8, and I'm probably going to actually end up keeping this phone for myself for my collection because it is in such good condition. We can press down to the tape, which was actually working pretty decently to keep the back glass panel into place, and I can go ahead and test out everything, and it was of course working fine. Once we have that, we can go ahead and do the peel of satisfaction, which was something that I don't get to do too often because usually my displays are used that I buy and these ones were refurbished. We can go ahead and see that there is absolutely no burn-in or dead pixels on this display. It is in very remarkable condition, which was really cool to see. And with that, we have wrapped up both Galaxy S8 restorations. And there you have it, two fully restored Samsung Galaxy S8s that before this video started were looking a little rough, but now are in near mint condition. So, let's talk a little bit about cost. So I bought both of these phones for $54 each. That comes to a total of $108.52 for both of these phones. Now, like I said, this was a parts lot where I did not know the condition of each phone. They had like 20 available. So I spent $143.90 each on the screen. That includes taxes and shipping. $8.08 for the two back glass panels. That is the total cost for the two. $13.58 for the three back adhesive strips. That comes to a total of $206 invested for the more broken phone and $202 invested for the burn-in phone. Now, looking ahead a little bit, you can see that I did in fact sell the burn-in screen for a price of $80, so that does bring our total invested into each phone down to $166 for the more broken phone and $162 for the burn-in phone, which is about a decent price for the Galaxy S8 and what condition they are in. So with that out of the way, I must say these are some good-looking phones. The Galaxy S8 is one of my favorite design Samsung phones ever to be released and has yet to be topped. I do very much appreciate the bezeled look, even though they are a little outdated. I think that design looks really nice compared to the hole punch designs of modern Samsung phones. I just wish that they would be able to find a bit of a happy medium there, but I think the curved glass edges and the, camera placement and just everything there really reminds you of a classic Samsung phone, and I just really love the design. And with that said and done, that concludes today's video. I hope you guys and gals enjoyed it a lot. If you did, please consider checking out some of my other phone restoration videos. I would really appreciate it. And of course, if you enjoy those as well, I would ask that you please consider subscribing. But as always, I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.